Good morning, Dan and Amy. A little campus watch, a little higher ed talk. More schools that Amy cannot send Peyton and Eli to.
I was a little disappointed.
So do a little quick rundown before we talk to our friend Everett Piper, who's the president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University, which is one of the schools Peyton and Eli may attend.
Right. Thank you very much.
There's about 5 left. It's like Oklahoma Wesleyan, Wyoming Catholic, Thomas Aquinas.
University of Chicago.
Claremont
They got rid of
McKenna.
safe spaces.
Yeah, University of Chicago, jury's still out there. Don't get too excited.
I thought
Don't
that was
get too
great.
excited.
They're not pandering to the little babies. They're not creating man children.
Not exactly. Nah, the jury's still out at University of Chicago. Maybe University of Dallas, different story. But here's some things happening around campuses at some institutions of higher learning where you may aspire to send your kids and you shouldn't, like Duke University.
What happened at Duke?
Duke University.
I didn't hear about that one, Dan.
A safe space room.
Oh, stop it.
Debuting at Duke.
What color is it going to be? Or can't be any color. We offensive.
We want to have a place for people who feel marginalized and face constant attention for characteristics that are immutable, like their skin color or their religion. Their religion is immutable. Their immigration status, that's immutable. Or whether they're from another country. To be able to heal.
Heal from what?
Exactly. That's Professor Catherine Whitten. She's the co-chair of this public policy school at Duke University. Their Committee on Diversity and Inclusion. Oh, my gosh. That is the definition. That is the example of why Thomas Sowell said the least intelligent form of life is a committee. Right here, the Sanford Committee on Diversity and Inclusion. So you got a safe space room for kids who are told to be obsessed about these quote-unquote immutable characteristics, where they can go and heal from our obsession with their characteristics, the obsession of the same people creating the safe spaces. At Clemson University, can't pray on campus. No prayer on campus. A Clemson grad student, Kyra Palange, walked across campus after class and noticed a man sitting in a folding chair with another chair next to him holding a sign saying prayer. I approached him and we sat down to pray for a few minutes. When we finished, a man from the university approached us and he said, we could not be praying because it's not a designated free speech area.
For me, that this is not a free speech area.
Again, we have designated areas. I'll take it that you were recording.
Yes, I am.
We have designated areas on campus. Him not being a student or faculty or staff, then he has to go through the proper procedures regarding the reservation.
So you told me that this was not a free speech area. Can you clarify what that means?
This is not a designated free speech area. So if you more than welcome to take a look at the facility use policy.
And by that you mean that there are free speech areas on campus and that the entire campus is not a free speech area.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's very
And could you
helpful.
state your name for me and your position?
My name again is Sean Jones. I'm the Assistant Director of Client Services.
My name
Thank
is
you very much.
Sean Jones, and I'm the Gruppenführer on the campus of Clemson University. Boy, I tell you, if they're getting to Clemson, it is a state school, but still, free speech area. You may have thought that like a college campus would be a free speech area, and if you thought that, you would be wrong.
That's infuriating. But then I think I have a topper. I think Gonzaga U.
Well, wait, we got to get to Iowa. Don't gloss over Iowa. No, you're not glossing over your alma mater.
Perky's face is going to stay the same.
The Black at Iowa support group is creating a microaggression support group for students to explore racial identity and a sense of belonging, managing relationship with others, defining balance between work, personal, and school life, and so forth. Coping with microaggressions experienced on campus, this Black at Iowa support group, your alma mater, where Peyton and Eli may also not attend.
Well, they'll get their act together in a few. I'll give them 6 years to get their act together. But I think the worst is Gonzaga U. They hired, can I get some muscle in here? Dr. Glick.
Hi, media. Can I talk to you?
No, you need to get out.
Well,
you need to get out.
No, I don't.
You need to get out.
I actually don't.
All right. Hey, who wants to help me get this reporter out of here? I need some muscle over here.
Yeah.
And she said that to a student who was a communications major at University of Mizzou.
Well, and
she
he
didn't
was-
know he was a student at the time, but he was a senior.
He was a reporter. That's
Right.
the most important
Well,
point.
still,
And
but-
also, it doesn't matter whether he was a reporter. You need some muscle over here to get this guy out.
Inciting violence.
Missouri, in their infinite wisdom, I mean, someplace Missouri and infinite wisdom, that's not something that you normally, those phrases aren't normally used in the same sentence. But the University of Missouri got rid of Melissa Click.
Well, yeah, and then she said she was fired because she was white. Remember that one? But she was hired, and they said she was hired through an extensive national search process that revealed her to be the most qualified and experienced candidate for the position. That came from Gonzaga U.
Yeah, the Jesuits to the rescue to disgrace the Catholic Church yet again, particularly in the area of higher education, like Notre Dame does as a matter of course. So Melissa Click, the interesting thing, part of a package deal, her TAs, Rocco and Moose, also invited to spend some time on Gonzaga's campus with her. And that's got a sting for Dr. Everett Piper, president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University, because I know he wanted to add Melissa Click to the faculty, but Gonzaga beat you to it, Dr. Piper. Sorry about that.
I'm speechless on that. What do I say?
Well, so you wrote this op-ed we've discussed before with you that went viral. This is not a daycare, it's a university. That's the title of your new book. This is not a daycare, but Iowa and Duke and Clemson and so many other colleges would beg to differ with you on that point.
I wrote another op-ed just last week, which was a response because I've had a lot of people calling me as the school year has begun, asking me, what's the status on your not a daycare piece, where you confronted all this nonsense, this snowflake rebellion, this microaggression lunacy. And I said, well, our enrollment is up substantially. Apparently people, parents, students, donors alike, agree that it's good to have a conservative Christian university that can step into the mix and say college is a place for you to develop your character, not a place for you to be coddled. I'm more interested in you becoming a person with integrity rather than focusing on diversity and focusing on various different microaggressions. In fact, last I knew, we call ourselves a university, not a diversity, and there's a reason for that.
Huh.
We take pride in unity rather than division.
And you
things are going well for us, and I believe this message of college shouldn't be safe necessarily, but a place for you to grow is a message that people resonate with.
And you wrote an article that it's not a daycare, it's a university, and talked about a student who came forward and felt victimized by one of the sermons. Can you elaborate?
Yeah. I had a kid that actually came forward after a chapel service. We are a conservative Christian university, and after a chapel service where the sermon was on 1 Corinthians 13, a sermon on love, the kid came forward and said, you singled me out and you made me feel uncomfortable. And my response to this young man was that discomfort you felt after hearing a sermon on love, it's called your conscience. You might want to attend to it. I'm not in the business of issuing trigger warnings before altar calls. We're here to confront you, not to coddle you. We're here to see you grow, not to see you curl up in a fetal position because somebody presented an idea that made you feel uncomfortable in chapel. This is a university. It's not a daycare. It's a place for you to grow up. That was the nature of my first piece. And then the last piece I wrote just last week was a solution. What's the answer to this lunacy? And I called upon people to remember that Richard Weaver wrote in 1948, ideas have consequences. What was his point? Ideas have consequences. Good ideas lead to good culture, good church, good community, good government, and bad ideas lead the opposite direction. We've got to stop sending our kids off to these institutions that teach this narcissistic, self-absorbed pablum. If we continue to feed our kids ideological carcinogens, they will get cancer of the soul and cancer of the mind. We've got to recognize the value of virtuous ideas rather than teaching victimization and selfishness all the time.
And this is critically important, this message, because it's one thing for us to recount these stories and, kind of all sensible people like scoff and this is ridiculous and that's absurd and I would never support that. And yet they turn around and they send their kids to their alma mater, which is doing it because, the football team's great or because I have some misplaced fealty to my alma mater. And there really needs to be an accounting, and people need to kind of have it put between their eyes, so to speak. Hey, look, you went to Northwestern. That's all well and good, but Northwestern is one of these totalitarian re-education centers. And if you just scoff at this, but while providing funding or sending your kids there, and by providing funding, then you're furthering the thing that you're scoffing at that you think is terrible. That we may be scoffing at them, but they're continuing to march on.
Spot on. And I'm going to repeat myself here. Ideas have consequences. We have been sending our students off to institutions for the last 30, 40, 50 years, put whatever time frame you want on it, where these institutions teach what's antithetical to a free society and a free people. The Liberal Arts Academy was established, let's go back to Oxford in 1100 AD, to do what? to liberate us, to educate a free man and a free woman. In the words of Jesus Christ, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And if we continue to send our students off to institutions that disparage the truth and elevate the self, in other words, teach selfishness and narcissism, self-absorption, rather than pursuing the truth, then we will reap the consequences of terrible ideas. The chickens are coming home to roost. G.K. Chesterton said, when you get rid of the big laws of God, you don't get liberty, but rather thousands of little laws that rush in to fill the vacuum. We've gotten rid of the 10 simple laws, if you will. In Jesus' words, only 2 laws. We've gotten rid of those simple laws that gave us liberty, and as a result, we've got all this microaggression nonsense, thousands of little laws that don't even give us the freedom to pray on a college campus.
And the advance of the arguments like this offered by Heather McGhee, who's the president of Demos, which is a think tank and MoveOn.org ally. Why is college so expensive? Why are college costs so high for everyone? Racism. Racism used as a political weapon to undermine the very idea of supporting anything public that might include people of color. She writes, it's like when southern towns preferred to drain their public swimming pools after courts ordered them integrated. That's what she's saying colleges are doing to avoid admitting people of color, and that's why college costs are so high. It's the draining. It's a metaphor along the lines of draining swimming pools after integration in the South. What's your response to that?
Well, I would argue that college costs are expensive because the federal government keeps meddling in my business and increasing my costs because I have to add employees at every corner to try to manage and respond to their microaggressions, if you will, where they're meddling in the affairs of a private academy. For example, Title IX. I'm now being told, under the auspices of a law that was established to give women equal access to the athletic field, that I have to now accommodate transgenders. Well, how can I give women equal access to anything if the government is telling me that a woman, a female, is not a biological fact, but merely a fantasy or a fabrication? And I now have to hire lawyers, and I have to hire a response team to respond to this nonsense. If the federal government would stay out of my business, my costs would go down.
All right. He is Dr. Everett Piper, the president of Oklahoma Wesleyan University, a approved college for Peyton and Eli to matriculate. Yes. And
hey, if you're buying, we'll go.
Yeah, sure,
I mean, anything
sure.
Uncle Dan wants to throw our way.
I'm sure Dr. Piper and I can work something out to send the kids there. Dr. Piper, the book is This Is Not a Daycare Center. Dr. Piper, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Blessings. Bye-bye.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM